nhớ xong của nhà Senator Susan Pa nó bé tôi Shala Shita the state capital nó tôm lòng bé cho quân nhiều chỉ cho community members hai tia xe xong nó bé là qua bé cho hậu lử state legislators họ đã chỉ chẳng cho bé community có bé cho non-profit bé cho công hậu bé cho community member bé cho nó cho qua là tôi nó bé Shala tôi nó bé Shita mỗi chỉ gì tờ hai tia bây giờ đây nụ xong nó bây giờ ra chỉ thành là bắt đầu bây mong community thế bắt đầu bây giờ Asia nhớ hậu bên số đó nó dùng xe hay tiền nên số đó tôi cộng bây tôi bỏ hay tiền nó bây giờ là ra chỉ đó và thế kia xe hay tiền tận đây nó mua nên mua ra chỉ là nên hú tôi cú tàu số đông nhà xe cho bây trâu xuân xuân ý xuân bao bây chỉ ta lên đó nên đi tàu cú tụ email là tàu nó susanpa@yahoo.com dùng xe thế kia xe hay để bây giờ sinh chi thế tàu sĩ thả
nhớ rằng là nó là state center phòng ha nó bé to sĩ sau nó vì ta cái xong nó bé một cầu lên cái sai trang luôn là bé sinh nhớ trong lúc sinh mình ta nói là trang cáiตัวnày tổ cho là sáu cho cái nhớ trong lúc trong nó nếu mà bé cho lên mong họ mới từ đây trang cái Nhật Bản bé giờ cho bé sinh sai cho House of Representatives là hồ Senate nóแต่เป็นตัวขาดสุดเลยฮะแต่สิเป็นรู้เป็นกูใส่รู้เสียnó luôn nónแต่เป็นสิ่งสุดเลยแต่เป็นสิ่งฮะจะกูหูคอนเชอร์อย่างนั้นจริงนะแต่เวียแต่เขาโน้เป็นยาปีซื้อฮะเป็นชิ้นเหนือแต่เป็น有ยิ่ง到路中บอกเลยนะฮะเป็นชิ้นเหนือแต่เป็นจะ Democrat 有ยิ่ง到路中บอกเลยเนาะฮะนะจะ頭到เขาเลยเนาะ頭 November แต่เป็นยา organize ใช้路จุนเนาะซึ่งนะแต่ยังไม่ใช่แต่เป็นเก๋สิทางเลยเนาะตู้ลีจอบจริงๆแหละแต่是知道ลีฮะสิทาง的只說上เนาะ只說ลี上只說能到路了等待ฮะนะแต่เขาก็ไม่ชอบป้องซ่าฮะโชว์อย่างมาจีฮะแต่ก็หันนู่นหน่อยต่อกันนู่นเนาะก็หันนู่นเนาะแต่จะหรือลีมาเลยเตาแต่จะหรือ上มาเลยเตานะแต่โชว์อย่าง有ปีฮะ有少了有到14號ตัวอย่างเลยเขาคือพอตั้งเป็นโลหะเนาะเกี่ยวเท่าเนาะจู่รู้ได้รู้เช่าเนาะเลยเซนเตอร์บิมโมล่ะ represent ใช่เช่าล่ะ Audrey พอตัวปีหนึ่งก็รู้ชงรู้ละนะแต่是เนาะคือยังรู้เช่า到ไปใส่ชงเนาะรู้到做เก่าเล่งตัวหนึ่งคือ要被审ใส่โอ state senator 哈 House of Representative 我ไม่จอง到กูจริง要เนาะกูจริงหาลูกมอง做咩ชอบป้องซ่าไปยังสูซ่าสูงจูโอเคยังสูซ่าอีสายเสียงพอหาตามจะน้อยไปยังหาตาไปได้ไปเจอเรายิ่งยอเลยได้เจออเมริกาเนาะแต่ยิ่งยอมองฟิง做到做新面是大做新พอ做上อีสายแต่说来用上用只要移民招啥更大做叫民用叫落移民招啥คือ招啥เอาหนึ่งจะเรายังไม่โคขายไปจะโหลดตันเดเจไปจะขึ้นคือเจจะจะไปก็เป็นหัวเกิดแต่ยกโอลุหนึ่งจะยังตันเดเลยจังกูลองซาจังเปล่านะกูลองซาจังเปล่ากูตัวอยากทำจานหนึ่งเลยคือโชว์เลยหนึ่งก็ไปจะส่งคือจะอยากย้อนจะลูกกันดูหน่อยทอก็ไปชิลูจะยังตันเด
Our map caucus members. These are our legislators, and I'm going to go ahead. Our map caucus members are the ones out front here. I'm going to go ahead and have them introduce themselves. Let's go ahead and start on this end as they just come down.
Good afternoon, everyone. Representative Cooley, District 59A, North Minneapolis. I'm the chair of the House Member.
Representative Dopey Hunter, I represent Senator 64A, and that's in St. Paul, and I am the chair of pensions.
I'm Representative Ethan Chai, represent Woodbury 47B. This is my first term, and I am the MAP Caucus chair. Thank you all for being here.
And I'm Susan Hawk. I represent Senate District 38, which is Brooklyn Park with the Senator in Osseo. And this year, I have the honor of being the vice chair of capital investments and on the housing committee.
Hi everyone, Representative Samantha Vang. I represent the Brooklands and chair of agriculture.
Hi,
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Sensimura. I represent District 63A, South Minneapolis, and this is my first time.
Hello, hello, my name is Benito. I represent the southeast corner of Citizens Hall, and I serve the Workforce Development League.
Hi everyone, my name is Liz Lee, and I represent 67A on St. Paul's East Side. I'm Vice Chair of the Property Tax Division, and also on the Big Tax Committee, so happy to get your concerns. I also serve in the Education Policy and Children and Family Committees. And I also wanted to just explain, we can't have microphones here, so we're all going to raise our voice a little bit and, fight the stereotype that Asian folks are quiet today. Thank you for understanding.
And we have Senator Lucio and Senator Caucus that will be joining us a little bit late, but when they get here, we'll have them introduce themselves to you. And then I just want to quickly acknowledge our guest speakers that we've asked today to come share some information with us and some of their thoughts. If I can have our guest speakers just kind of stand up so we know who you are, and then later we'll call you up to speak at a different time. But our guest speakers, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I do want to acknowledge the elected officials that have come here to join us. Now, I don't know if, I haven't seen all of you, but is anyone in here an elected official, whether it's a local level, a county, or here at the state with us? Can you please stand if you're also here joining us? Okay, all right, just want to make sure I acknowledge that they did come. Thank you so much again for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our chair, Stephen Chuck.
Thank you everyone for being here with us with the MAP Caucus here at the state capitol. I'm so proud and honored to be part of this organization and to be a legislator at the Minnesota legislature. This is my first term, but I want to thank the leadership. And those leadership include Senator Coher, Representative Fu Lee, and Representative Kelly Hoyer with Representative Jay Shaw and Samantha, who were here before the freshmen here. And so they are the ones that started the MAP Caucus in 2019. With Samantha, Representative Samantha Van Kirt being the first chair, along with Tu Shaw and Representative Kelly Hoyer. So we are greatly honored to have the opportunity to represent this very, very, great group of people here. I just want to highlight something, and the importance of this MAP Caucus. And you mentioned a couple of the chairs spoke to being chair of this committee, and so I want to highlight that because that's very important. Because that
Marked 81 years since Executive Order 9066 was signed, which interned 120,000 Japanese Americans, including my grandparents, including many ancestors of people in this room and in our community. So I'm going to invite Ryan Sudo from the Japanese American Citizens League to come up and just speak with us briefly about the Day of Remembrance and what that means for our community. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Representative Sensimura. My name is Ryan Sudo. Today, I am representing the Japanese American Citizens League Twin Cities chapter. Our chapter was founded in 1947 in Minnesota, at a time when Asian immigrants to the state were not even eligible to become citizens. And since then, our community has fought for immigrant rights, reparation and recognition for the descendants and incarcerees of Japanese internment, and also civil rights issues to this day. I want to say that despite our long history in this state, we know that Japanese Americans and Asian Americans are only one political crisis away from being scapegoated once again. Being an outstanding citizen is not enough to make our grandparents feel safe amidst rising anti-Asian hate crimes. It's not enough to prevent people from misusing and altering our history, like what happened in 2021 in the city of Ramsey, Minnesota, when a councilwoman compared public health measures like mask mandates to Japanese American incarceration. And it's also not enough to make our Muslim, our Jewish, our Chinese neighbors feel safe from similar tropes of disloyalty that continue to subject them to real harm. So that's why the work at everybody tomorrow at 3 p.m. the East Side Freedom Library and Japanese American Citizens League will be hosting a panel and speaker for the Day of Remembrance. Again, as Representative Sentamura said, it's the 81st anniversary this year. Thank you, everyone.
So we are going to move into our section here. We're going to have a couple of guest speakers speak today, and our apologies for giving you such a short amount of time, but each person will have 2 minutes to speak, just so that you can give an overview kind of who you are, what you do, and what is going on with our AAPI community. And so I will be keeping time. I did just also want to add, in addition to that, that Representative Samir as our first Japanese American elected to the Minnesota legislature, we are one of the largest AAPI caucus in the country. Accomplishment on our part, considering the percentage of we are as a population of this state, that we should be very proud of the AAPI community, but that also means that we should be asking for a lot from the legislature. And so thank you all for being here so that we can hear your voices. With that, I'm going to first call up Dr. Jampo to come up to say a couple of words. Dr. Jampo.
Before I let Dr. Jampo speak, I just want to acknowledge Senator Tushong is here. And maybe let everybody introduce yourself. Yep.
Yeah, hello, I'm Senator Tujong. I'm also the Vice Chair for the Energy Committee in the Senate. But I represent Senate District 44, Maplewood, Oakdale, Little Canada, and Pine Springs and Lansing. Thank you all for joining us today.
And we also have Senator Pomper who's here, so give you a few minutes to introduce yourself.
Okay, well, welcome. State Senator Pomper, represent Eastside St. Paul. I think by percentage, I have the largest Asian American in population. So it's Eastside St. Paul. I'm sure all Catholic brothers live there.
All right, you have the floor, Dr. Jampo.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank our elected official for hosting this wonderful event. So let's get a loud applause for our elected officials. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Bob, for inviting me to speak a little trends about our community. We have been here forever, but it looks like the Asian American, Southeast Asian Hmong community has not been penetrated into the American education system. And I think our young people now are losing their identity. A lot of my children, for example, they have no idea about the root of the Hmong contribution to the war. They have no idea about the Asian American history in Minnesota. I think it's about time that we need to push for a bill that would actually recognize and include Asian Americans' history into our curriculum, and particularly getting Hmong lessons to be in the curriculum, and I think it's a huge need. The second thing that I would call for, another trend that I see as a researcher, it's really time to looking at the ESL population. I know that the Southeast Asian population have been here for more than 40 years. 97% of people who are fluent in English and not so fluent in the native language still forced into ESL education. And I think that has to change. And I hope that we continue to push for a bill that would actually take a look at what's going on with this educational system and why a lot of the second and third generation are still subject to this program that are actually designed for people like you who came from America without education. So I just want to push for those two components. I hope that you know the community towards those two. Thank you.
Dr. Jampo. The next person that will come up to speak is Dr. Bruce Cord.
Members of the Canadian Caucus, it's an honor to be in your midst. It's groundbreaking work that you're doing, and it's a message to the American people about what can be possible in the American dream. The Asian American economy is $14 billion in buying power and about more than $1 billion in taxes, more than 15,000 businesses, 15,000 youth in higher education, 150,000 workers, and more than 20% live in greater Minnesota. During the pandemic, when we needed capacity, in my opinion, there was only one organization that was meeting, that would have the needs of the workers, the Asian community. And so it kept not only the Asian community, but all other communities. And so I'm going to take some bullet points to see what I hope that could be achieved today, because it's very important. A lot of good proposals for the now, but no proposals for the long term. Long-term investment funding, and we've got to insist that happen. First, I hope that you would immediately, before you leave this room, make sure that there's good data on your website, because the data on the House website about population demographics is wrong, and if it's wrong, we make bad decisions on it, and I already have an experience I can tell you about it. Some of the things that I'd like you to think about is Senator, Chair Cooley and Senator Park. You are the second largest ethnic economy in Minnesota. Senator Fong, the largest ethnic economy in Minnesota. A $300 million bill to support the emerging real estate developers, and I can get into the details with you. Senator Hall, and a few of you are on the Legacy Committee. You know the denial of our values is foundational to racism. Our values have been neglected. Our children in the schools have faced it. We need about $50 million in a long-term fund to build cultural assets. And these cultural destinations, how we flip the ideas to the negativity around our culture to create Little Lake Hong, for instance. Chair John Sensafong, in your two committees, $100 million workforce bill, because you know that the Minnesota Caucus workers are growing older, and in 10 years' time, our workers are going to take their place. So how are we investing in their skills? Representative Burr on the Ed Committee, the state grant program impacts 20% of our population, so keeping the student share of the living expenses lower will benefit along, and good to know you're on the pensions committee. Like on the pensions fund, we have a PRI kind of investment in our development. Chair Bank, you're doing a great job with agriculture. We need to scale it. We need to have a $10 million capacity fund to make sure that what happened in COVID will not happen again. So going around the Capitol, giving every legislator this little sheet that tells the economy in their district that we elected them to represent, and the amount of taxes we pay. And so,
for the recommendations you just made, have you sent that to all of us? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And we're taking notes, just so you guys know, everything that you guys are giving us feedback on today is being taken note on, and we'll be sharing that with our members for after this as well.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Cal Meijong from the Coalition of Asian American Leaders.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cal Meijong, and I'm with the Coalition of Asian American Leaders. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the Matt Caucus for inviting Cal to speak today. I only have 2 minutes, so I'm going to keep it pretty succinct. CAL is a statewide organization that has over 5,000 network leaders from all different Asian American ethnic groups. And the 3 top ethnic groups in the state of Minnesota is Hmong, Chinese, and Indian American. We are a cross-sector, cross-ethnic, cross-generational network of folks. And we have people as far north as Deep Falls and as far south as Worthington. And of course, the 7-area metro has a significant population of Asian Americans. We are a social justice organization committed to creating long-term systems change through policy advocacy, organizing, leadership support, and original data and research. What I want to say today is that Asian Minnesotans have been hit hard by COVID and by anti-Asian hate. These impacts have hurt us economically. And we did a survey in 2020 on how small businesses have been impacted by these 2 issues. And one of the things they told us is that they need direct legislative support to make sure that there's technical assistance, language access, training, and access to government programs. So today, Cal is going to be pushing a bill for nonprofits, but we also currently have a grant program available for $5,000 to about 10 small businesses. It's currently open until the end of the month. If you want more information, please come to me and I'll write down your information and send it to you. So that is available to address some of the issues that small businesses request of us. In addition to that, we are pushing for a bill to support small nonprofits who've been impacted, period, by everything that's happening. And this bill is called a Nonprofit Infrastructure Bill. We're asking for $3 million to help small, culturally specific nonprofits. This, there's a cap. If you're a small nonprofit that makes less than $1 million, you would qualify for this program. I want to thank our chief bill authors, Representative Senator Mora, as well as Senator Putnam, who's not here today. And I want to thank the co-authors of the bill who are all sitting up here as well, so thank you. This bill started in 2017 and has helped over 70 nonprofits throughout the state of Minnesota. And it's helped these small nonprofits to really be able to survive through the pandemic and create the infrastructure so they can apply for government funding. And anyone who has government funding, you know the amount of paperwork required, you know the finance structure that you need to be able to actually even get reimbursed for your services. So this bill will help you do that. Next, I want to talk about, ethics studies. Cal, in partnership with the Ethics Studies Coalition, is pushing for high schoolers to be required to take an ethics studies program. This ethics studies course will help our young people build cultural confidence, cultural pride, and have a better sense of their racial identity, as well as help their white peers understand how our different histories intersect and actually that we're all more alike than we're not. So on February 27th, there's going to be the Ethnic Studies Day at the Capitol. I invite you all to come. And once again, our chief bill author, Senator Mora is our chief bill author, and Senator Kunish, he is our senator. So thank you.
Thank you. And I was going to call Ryan, but I feel like maybe Ryan had one announcement we did. We were going to ask Ryan, but in the interest of time, we're going to actually go to our last speaker. Actually, we have two more speakers. The next one is from 18 Council. So if you're ready, come on up. Sorry.
I have Dr. Brian with me here. So my name is Paul Zhong. I'm the chairman of Home Council. And as you all may know that the home community we have a lot of issues. As last year, we had a lot of tragedies, a lot of issues that involve the home community, and even now we still have a lot of issues. So I will have Dr. Brian talk about what we need for home community.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Zhong. I'm the program director for the Hmong 18 Council. It's an honor to be here. As a program director for the Hmong 18 Council, we consult and conduct survey with the elders, the clan leaders, and these are the two items the Hmong community would like us to speak on behalf of them. The Hmong Minnesota is the largest population in the state of Minnesota, but we don't have a permanent Hmong community center, and we need one of them. We get tired of the media coming and say, what happened in your community? We need a place where community members can be there and ask for resources. So two items we propose today are the Hmong Minnesota Community Center will be a place where government officials can contact the Hmong community, a place where the whole community member, elder, young and old can come together and learn the resource in the state of Minnesota. This center will have the following item: educational and career training. We pay a lot of tax, and we need a place where we can train our elder family to get out there and be productive member of society. We need Hmong historical library, cultural museum, and archives. You guys talk about ethnic study, but where is the place to locate ethnic study? We need a place where we can host this museum and archive for our younger generations. We need a place where the Hmong 18 Council and clan leader can have a space so they can come together and have a dialogue, what happened at home, at family. We can no longer park in the street for long hours, many cars and one block, and have somebody host a meeting in their basement. We need a place where elder and family can come together. Okay? We need to have a community engagement and conference room so we can educate our community. We need to have youth and family recreation gym. Minnesota is a cold state, and we know summer is short. We need a place where our elders can stay healthy, our young can grow and learn from the elders. And we also a nonprofit organization serving the largest Hmong population in the state of Minnesota. So the second item we hope for is a Hmong Community Funeral Home Services Center. The Hmong people that believe serving a traditional to the ancestors or to someone who passed away. And funeral costs so much. We have many families who have no income or from low income. And we need a place where they can have a proper funeral services where the cost of expense will be less for the family. This is the struggle that our family have reached out to us at the Hmong 18 Council. So on behalf of the Hmong 18 Council, Hmong Minnesota community, we want to thank you for you being here and listening from our community. Thank you.
Our last speaker today will be our SGU, and so our big SGU veterans in May.
，Good afternoon to the leadership of Minnesota Asian Pacific Council, Minnesota Asian Caucus, Minnesota legislator, and honorable guests. My name is retired Lieutenant Tom Ben. I am the president of the NGO Veterans and Family of USA organization. Our veterans served as a CIA secret army and secret war in Laos during the Vietnam War from 1961 to 1975. When the secret war ended in 1975, about 35,000 Hmong soldiers were killed in supporting American policy in Laos. More than 100,000 civilians and former CIA soldiers were killed after the war by communist Laos and the North Vietnamese who were siding with the United States. They died without honor, without proper burial place. The contribution and sacrifice of our Hmong soldiers during the war are the reason the United States accepting our community as a refugee to come to Minnesota and in the United States beginning of 1975. Even today, our Hmong history in our veteran involvement with the United States during the Vietnam War is still unknown. Today, my veteran organization would like to work with your Caucus, the governor office, and the community partner to establish a place for our veterans to share our story with all Minnesota. We plan to outreach to each of you for your support. Thank you.
I'm going to take a couple, like 2 minutes here to kind of help emphasize the SG because I know there's a language barrier sometimes and then that message of passion doesn't come through the elders. And I want everybody here to understand that we are here because of the secret war in Laos. we are children of, those SGU soldiers and veterans, and we are almost like a generation of invisible Hmong people because we are not being acknowledged that our parents participated in that Vietnam War, right? Our SGUs don't have veteran benefits. They don't have burial grounds. They are not being acknowledged by the government. And that is the struggle, right? A generation of invisible veterans is what we have here, and a generation of invisible refugees. That's why we fight so hard for, the inequalities, right? That is why I am standing up here. It's because we need to change this, and we need to change not only for the Hmong community, but for all API communities across Minnesota, and be the leadership for API legislation in all 50 states. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair Chow, and thank you to all of the community stakeholders who have spoken up already. I just want to acknowledge some folks who have joined us. Andrew Morris from the Council on Asian Pacific Minnesotans, and then Mike Zatoff from World American Partnership. We also have.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for this question. And the question said, how can we get your support to complete our Hmong and Chinese garden at Baden Lake? Definitely, you can count on our support. There's two approaches at this. We can seek for bonding support, which will go through Chair Lee Committee and the Senate bonding chair with Sandy Pappas. You can also look at the arts and cultural aspect of it, which will be in my community, my environment and legacy community, that's the art and culture. So there's two components there, and we'll be happy to help you. I know that for a little back history, 38 years ago, the city of St. Paul and the city of Changsha become sister city to each other. And so at the time when I become the state senate, the community and the neighborhood of Eastside St. Paul welcomed the pavilion to the next to Baden Lake. So that's how we come about having a pavilion there. It's very, very beautiful. I know folks doesn't have to travel to Chicago now to take picture with the pavilion. You can come to Eastside St. Paul to take picture with the pavilion, understand the unity of our sister city, and also understand the past and the present of our Hmong community as well as our Chinese community. So, but we're there for you. Thank you.
We have a couple of questions about public safety and the Hmong elder who was recently killed in St. Paul. So I'm going to direct this to Chair work in this space, and also, maybe perhaps Aaron, I don't know if you want to after Chair.
So this is a really tough issue for us because oftentimes public safety is not had in the conversation of including the AAPI community. But we also know that all of us, regardless of how we show up, we're all fighting for the same thing. So we have actually, as a MAP Caucus, been working quite a bit since the murder of George Floyd to really look at police reform and to look at how we can dismantle the systems in which really oppress certain communities within Minnesota here. And so from that work, it has led us to things such as funding police for around mental health support for them, right? Funding in order to have support staff go out on police calls. Instead of sending an officer, that we are sending people who might be mental health providers instead. Figuring out how we can actually change how police officers are trained and how they show up in the workforce. But we've also been focusing on the issues that are causing reasons why police are coming to our homes, right? Our communities have been experiencing mental health issues that really have not been addressed because oftentimes, as Chair Chow mentioned, we are the invisible minority. And so we're talking about finding, Representative Vane carried a bill on culturally competent counselors and therapists coming into the field and having that field be more diverse. We're also working on how do we support our children at school, and oftentimes with what we saw out of the pandemic, a lot of our students were very isolated and they were having issues with learning and achievement. And that when we are struggling with our own personal family life and our life and our education, it leads to other forms of violence that may manifest. And so we know that the violence that we're experiencing isn't just because our communities are showing up in ways that are not being productive, but it is because we understand the forces around us. When we're dealing with instability in housing, when we're dealing with issues of transportation, when we're dealing with issues of economic and of wealth and the gap in wealth gap, that it all contributes to the issues that we are experiencing. specifically to the recent shootings that we've seen, whether it was at the stabbing at Harding High School or the recent shooting of our elders. There are some things that we do not know yet of the details, and so I always say that for us to give grace to those who are working through these issues, but know that we are also looking at these issues with a very distinct lens in that we are looking to how we can protect our communities, how we can ensure that law enforcement is working for our communities, but then also how do we ensure that the resources that our community needs in order for them to address the issues is really important. I have a bill that is up right now, it was heard in judiciary, around juvenile justice and our youngest offenders. And we know that right now just a handful of kids are committing the crimes that we're experiencing. And some of these crimes are actually sort of high-level crimes. And so what we're finding out is that our children are in crisis and there's no place to provide wraparound support for our children. And so we are looking to create facilities that when that child needs a space, and we don't want them in juvenile detention, we do not want them to end up in Red Wing in jails or facilities that are made for adults, that we need to be able to create facilities that will be safe for our children, but also provides them the mental health support that they need, provides them with the social services that their family needs, and in order for us to give them the resources to help them through these situations. So there's a lot that we are doing around police reform, a lot we're doing around community resources, and engaging people in the solutions. And so there will be more continued conversations around this. And I don't know if Chair Wong has anything to add to some of the police work we're doing.
Not at this time. Into the future.
Thank you. That was a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So next we have a couple questions about supporting Asian American students and our students of color. So we're going to have thank you. And I'll just speak to these briefly, and then I'm happy to talk more about these priorities afterwards. So one question was, in addition to multicultural education, how do we kind of think about compassion training and education being integrated into our school systems? So I guess what this makes me think of is, you know, when I was going to school in the 90s, I feel like we were really big on multicultural education, and the way that worked in kind of my public school was this idea of, you know, America is a melting pot, you know, you can kind of bring your culture, but it has to be this kind of side thing, or you bring in a culture day and it's about food or it's about your dress. And I think what that lacks is some of the more, I think, in-depth and complex and often painful history of what it means to be a person of color here in the U.S. So I think that ethnic studies is kind of, I see it as taking multicultural education a step farther to say, yes, it's important for us to know about other cultures, but we also need to know about the history of the U.S. We need to know about the secret war laws. We need to know about Japanese internment. We need to know about the Jim Crow laws. We need to know about redlining. And we need to know about those things because they are still playing out today, and they help us understand our current context. And so, you know, to me, the best education for our young people is an education that both gives you a window, a look out into another culture, another way of being, and then also a mirror, looking back at yourself. And so I think ethnic studies is a start to doing that. I know that that's something that we are really committed to as the MAP Caucus and also broader as the Posse Caucus. And then additionally, it was a question about how do we handle second and third generation AAPI students and ESL programming. So I think that there are kind of two issues here, and I know that Rob Kerr speaks to this a lot. So I think there's an issue of misdiagnosing students as ESL when they're not. And so I think that that goes back to kind of the way that sometimes our students are being stereotyped in our school or mislabeled. So students that come in that actually English is their first language because they have a certain last name, they get misidentified. They have to test out of that every year. So I think that that just shows kind of a lack of cultural competency from our school systems. In addition, for students that are English language learners, we are severely underfunding those schools and those programs. And so something that we are working on is trying to, something called Close the Cross Subsidy, which is essentially give the funding to those schools and those students that they deserve. Rob Kerr is carrying that bill and is looking to really rapidly increase the funding for English language learner students. And the last thing I'll say about this is, you know, this is an issue that is really important for the metro, but it's actually an issue that's statewide. If we look at the districts that actually have the highest percentage of English language learners in Minnesota, they're not in the metro. They're in places like Faribault or Worthington. And so I think it's really important that we continue to tell the story about how our AAPI communities, how our immigrant communities are not just here in the metro, they're actually statewide, because that will help our colleagues across the state really listen to the needs of our students. Thank you. Next we have Chair Dahl to talk about some of the questions about economic development that have been submitted.
Thank you, Representative. First and foremost, I'll answer the question. I want to recognize the mentor of my going to that. All you contacted me this morning and said, hey, we're having a laptop and meeting. Come on by. Yeah, I'd love to see all of you. So I appreciate you being here. And so to answer the question, what are your workforce development priorities and economic development priorities for the Great question. So over the last month and a half, Representative Caucus served the Economic Development Committee, and Senator Michael Champion, who chairs the Jobs and Workforce Jobs and Economic Development Committee. Is going to lead to have discussions with the government office. For those of you who pay attention to the government on the budget proposal, last week, last night we sat down and discussed. He's asking about $500 million proposal. It's about $1 billion. We've had discussions with many organizations like the Eagle Club. We've also been working with some folks who we know, Dr. Bruce Corey, who has been working with me, Chair Hassan, and Chair Michael Champion, Terry Tao, and Pat Pujane, and these more API leaders on making sure that as we have this historic trifecta moment, that we're also including our API community who often are left out at the conversation and do not get their fair share when it comes to capital policy. So we are working on a very comprehensive bill. Should be coming out in the next few weeks. We're meeting up with the chairs of the Ways and Means community, and also we're keeping Melissa Horman of our budget department. We're looking at close to $1 billion. That's when we're doing the jobs for the community, and we're going to make sure that impact already in the community. And we welcome all of you to come meet up with me to have a conversation. I know that several of you have had to mentor me, not have been able to attend. So you understand, we're here every day from 8 a.m. until midnight. So the last night, we were here until midnight. If you're here and half of us went on by, if you don't have a schedule, just come to our committee here and we'll get to meet here. We'll be quite happy to speak with you all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair John. So as you know, affordable housing is an issue that affects every state in our great nation. So because of her work in this space, we're going to have Chair Payne speak a little bit on the questions that people have submitted about housing instability and how supporting our low-income homeowners. I can pass that to Senator. Sounds good. Thank you, Representative Lee. Hi, everyone. Samantha Payne from the Brooklands. So I'm a housing advocate in my other day job, and we all know that there's been a housing crisis for a long time, and the pandemic has exacerbated the issue. And we, during the pandemic, we set up protections and assistance to make sure that we prevent an eviction wave, and now that eviction wave is here. And the alarm bells cannot be ringing any longer. So what we are trying to do here in the legislature is to make sure that we build pathways towards homeownership, and also pathways and making sure that homes from renting to even owning a home. And I think those are the key things that we want to look at to make sure that we are building wealth for our communities, and that everyone has a safe place. And so, I don't sit on the housing committee, but housing is a passionate issue of mine. There's a lot that we can do in housing in terms of protecting tenants, in terms of making sure homes are affordable and building homes for people to live in. So that is something that we are all very passionate about. I'm chair of the Ag Committee, and so like homes, land access is also not very affordable. And so as chair of Ag, I've been working really hard to make sure that small farmers, people who want to own farmland, are able to afford to be a farmer, the next generation of farmers. So that is the work that I've been doing for the past couple of years as a member of the Committee of Ag and now chair of Ag. And I can't do the work all on my own, and I need housing support to help me innovate and see what we can do to support the next generation of farmers.
A little bit on housing. So Chair Chat actually sits on housing, but I sat on housing for 4 years. There are a number of bills that we are working on. There's 4 tenant protection bills that are looking at keeping tenants in their homes. So, we have the right to live in rental units that are heated at 68 degrees during the coldest months of the year. That is a very common sense bill, and yet we haven't been able to pass that in 5 years. This is the year to get that across the finish line. We have a bill on source of income discrimination, that if you have a Section 8 voucher or you have any kind of public assistance for that a landlord cannot discriminate against your source of income so that you can have secure housing. We have a housing support program which helps our disabled, our communities of disability and our veterans, and those individuals are, so that veterans do not have to pay more than 30% of their income to their housing. These are all really important programs, and know that we are working on specific bills to address very specific issues that will impact our community. We will continue to do that. And so there are also first-time homeowner buying, homeowner purchases, and there's also an infrastructure bond to build more housing and more affordable housing. And those are all issues that we are working on right now.
I'm Representative Chan. I sit on the Housing Committee. I just want to make a small comment that as we sit in these committees, we understand what housing means to the immigrant and the refugee community, right? And so a lot of the outcomes of educational outcomes is because of home insecurities, right? We understand that, right? We understand that the average immigrant or refugee, they don't get civilly engaged until they start paying property taxes, right? And they become a member because they start caring about the community, they get civilly engaged, they start voting, and then they get to the legislature like all of us, right? And so I just want to add that piece to it.
Thank you. That actually tees it up really well for me because I am Vice Chair of Property Taxes, so I can give you a lowdown on what we're doing to support working class families and seniors so that they stay in their homes. We know that seniors who are able to stay where they live have better health outcomes, and that creates cost savings in other parts of our community. And so just want to reassure folks that we are trying to expand. Right now there's a very small program that allows seniors to defer the property taxes they pay. We're also hoping to expand other programs to allow folks to be able to pay their property taxes in a way that's equitable. As you know, if you're a homeowner, your property tax probably increased a lot recently, and if you've already paid off your home, the sticker shock is probably also really high because you're probably no longer paying a mortgage. So most people who pay mortgage, pay their property tax as part of that. So we're working very hard in property tax to make sure that we pay for the tax credits that we value. We want to make sure that our seniors and our low-income families who are building wealth through buying homes are able to keep that. So I hope that answers most of people's housing questions. If you have further questions, feel free to comment later. I've also, and also on the flip side, I want to address that we have Councilmember Nelson Gang here who asked about making sure that our cities and our counties who provide us really important services are able to also, meet their budget obligations, right? And so also do want to let folks know we are working on a really good LGA and CPA and county aid formula that will see increases for Ramsey County and in our cities. And then finally, there's a question about disaggregating data at DHS on child welfare placements. That falls in my committee as well. I'm happy to work on the bill for folks. Next, I want to Chair Lee to come up and talk a little bit about bonding. So we got a couple questions about community development projects and bonding projects. Chair Lee, we've got 2 minutes.
All right, so just wanted to say that there's been a lot of requests from throughout the state for public infrastructure projects, whether that's community development projects that you mentioned, the Mo Community Center, or the city of Minneapolis, some of the city streets, tunnels, all of that. And so what's really important is that for all of you who do want to seek state funding, we need you to have a plan that's already in place and not just an idea. We need you to show that you have funding, some kind of funding that's going to help add on to the public funding that you are asking from the state. And once you have shown the determination that you have the capacity to take on the state dollars to do the project that you do, then you need to start working with one of our legislators here. If you live in our area and your project is going to be in our area, reach out to us if you think that your project is gonna be located somewhere else, I need you all to talk to those local members to have you look at your project so that we can start moving your project forward. And so, just, so you understand the scope of the issue for us, in the state of Minnesota in 2021, the request for capital dollars from my committee was over $6 billion. And this year, I only have the ability to pay for about $1 billion worth of project. And so that means that a lot of communities are going to be left behind, and so that's why it's crucial for all of you, if you want state funding, to come forward to us with a plan and not just an idea. And so just can't stress that enough. And as you start moving forward, be in touch with me, my committee staff, or any of these colleagues here, and we'll work with you to make sure that if you are in a position to receive state funding, that you are in consideration for that.
Thank you, Shirley. And so we have 2 minutes left. I'm going to ask Senator Kerr, who is the dean of our caucus, to come and close us out. But do want to make it clear that, and we're willing to stay afterwards, because I know I have a couple questions that we can get to. So I just want folks to know we can adjourn at 3 o'clock as we had planned, but a lot of the MAP caucus members will be here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Kerr.
Well, thank you, Representative Lee, and thank you for all members of the MAP Caucus. Also, thank you for the leadership of Chair Ethan Schaaf and Vice Chair Susan Park. For spearhead. So I'm honored to be here as well. Nyano, so is blue. Namaste. Ni hao. And Samadhi. I pretty much cover most of the language. Yeah, and I do know a little bit more of Asian language. One time I was signing to the signing community, and I said, signing is pretty much my show off. I only know enough to sign my name for her. But I really appreciate that Senator Moore is here with us. She's a trailblazer, and earlier I would say almost 20 years ago already, Senator Moore set the tone and break ground. The reason we're all here, and also, represent Sai Tao, and I think before them was Senator Chaudhry. So there were the 3 known Asians during that time, and up to 2010 they decided to retire. And so when we started again in 2012, I was the lone Asian again here, and today we see a big difference. In 10 years, we had aggregation of Representative Fu Lee came on board, and then a year later we had 6 members in the House and the Senate, and today we have 10. We have 7 House members who are Asian American descent, and 3 in the Senate. And 4 of us are chair of a committee. Julie, as you heard, is the chair of bonding, capital investment, and represents Meta Bank as chair of agriculture. Representative Jay Shong is chair of labor, and myself as chair of environment, climate, and legacy. As I specified earlier, I cover arts and culture. So
I'm
we
the chair of pensions.
And chair of pensions. Fine, so I'm sorry. So we look forward to work with you. We look forward to work with Cal, Alana, SGU, and the Hmong American Coalition leaders, Hmong American Partnership, the Ethnic Council, and many more. To move forward, we have to work together. We're in discussion every day. Our colleague and I are in discussion every day. So we want to encourage folks to work together. Our Hmong community has to work together. Our Asian community has to work together. I often use the line that Russell Peter at Community talked about, that Chinese and East Indian sometimes hard to get along because Chinese always want to bid the price up, but East Indian always want to bid the price down. But they do get along when they do commerce. And one time, they've been asking me, how do I build the bridge between Hmong in Chinese. Well, I said, the Chinese favorite number is number 8, but the Hmong favorite number is number 3, it's us, 3. So we have to understand how we combine commerce. Number 8 is buys commerce. 8 is millions of dollars making money. So we had to be able to find a compromise between us and building wealth, similar to comedian Russell Peters. So thank you for all being here. We're gonna work together, and this is just beginning. This is just beginning. We are Hmong descent predominantly, but we are elected by the people of Minnesota to represent the people of Minnesota as Minnesota State Senator, which just happens to be Hmong descent, but we bring a special knowledge to the table of this Senate and House body, which is very needed for us to be fulfillment of Minnesota and Americans, to make Minnesota better and to make America better. So thank you all for being here. We're going to stick around and